Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about another interesting topic, and that is equality and diversity. Now, today's video was specifically inspired by my personal experience quite recently, and it was just me going through different platforms, equality and diversity forums, and as you would imagine, there are questions about sex and gender, and in my specific case, on the forum that I've encountered, there was only a question about what gender were you assigned at birth. And of course, the drop-down menu was consisting only of two options, and that is male and female. And I'm transgender, and let's talk about it because I want to walk you through specifically what's happening from an engineer perspective, and why that forms is technically broken and why exactly is harming the people it claims it protects. So, just very shortly, I work on validation systems and data integrity, and my whole job is making sure the information going into a system is actually representing reality, that you cannot enter an invalid state or that's impossible or false. So when I see a form like this, I don't just see something insensitive. I see a failure that I flag in any review. So let me walk you through it. Every form is a data model. So when you ask a question and offer a fixed set of answers, you're defining the shape of reality your system is willing to accept. And good data models has one core rule. Your schema has to be able to represent the thing it claims to measure. So if it cannot, everything downstream is corrupted. We even have a phrase for it, garbage in and garbage out. And the single sex field makes two mistakes at once. So let's name them as first. It collapses two completely different variables into one. Sex registered at birth and gender actually you live as are two completely different things. Matching them into one field is a normalization failure and exactly the kind of thing that gets caught in review because it makes the data ambiguous and entirely unusable. Second, it offers no valid state for millions of real people. When a form forces someone to enter information that is simply false, that is not a user error, that is a design that guarantees invalid input. And a well-built system never forces you into a lie, and this one does it by default. So what exactly happens to that data is that it gets aggregated into diversity statistics and the numbers organizations use to claim that they're tracking and tackling inequality. But if you record me as female, you haven't just collected a slightly inaccurate fact, you've created a statistics that is worse than missing. So you've counted me towards women's representation, while trans representation in our dataset reads as exactly 0. The discrimination I'm actually exposed to becomes statistically invisible because a system built to surface inequality has erased mine instead. And here's where it stops being abstract. The failure does not fall evenly. The people made most invisible by it are often the people already facing the most danger. And I want to specifically name trans women and trans women of color because they experience some of the highest rates of harassment and violence of any group. And they carry the inequalities not only for women, but on top of that, unique and serious threats to their safety, including when they're forced into spaces that aren't safe for them. Monitoring systems that cannot even register that they exist cannot protect them, and it cannot count the harm that is done to them either. So it cannot build the evidence for policies that are needed for equality and diversity. And the most frustrating part is that this is a solved problem. We already know how to do it right. When the UK ran the 2021 consensus, the Office for National Statistics asked about gender identity separately from sex, and that was a simple voluntary question along the lines of, is the gender you identify with the same as your sex registered at birth? Organizations like Stonewall have published this guidance for years, and the methodology exists. The best practice is documented in public. So when a company in 2026 ships a single binary box with no opting out, that is not a knowledge gap. That is a choice and a decision to erase the existence of a huge chunk of people on this planet. So if you build these systems, design schemas that can hold the truth, ask the right questions, and also I'd prefer not to say separate identity from birth assigned sex, and it costs almost nothing and it stops erasing people. So thank you for watching. Hope that was interesting. I hope that you learned something new today, and take care.